Today's math lesson, there are going to be decimals everywhere. We are dealing with division, and this time there will be decimals everywhere. You're going to have them in the divisor, you're going to have them in the dividend, you're going to have them sometimes even in the quotient. All three places. So get excited for that. This is lesson 5.8. You need a blue-violet color. It's like a purple. And a pencil. This is a lot to get set up on your journal, so push pause on the video until you have all of this set up. Do not forget to put the date in the date box. Okay, you should have push pause on the video. Here are the steps. Step number 1, locate the decimal in the divisor first. Step number 2, get rid of the decimal by moving it to the right however many times necessary to get a whole number. We don't want pieces. So I just did the little loops off to the side here. You can see 10 to the second, meant move it twice. 10 to the first meant move it once. 10 to the third means move it 3 times. You use powers of 10. And then whatever you do to the divisor, you must do to the dividend. So move the decimal in the dividend the same number of times that you did in the divisor. Okay, step number 4. Now move the decimal that you just moved in the dividend straight up. This is a little different. Move the decimal that you just moved in the dividend straight up into the quotient. That's going to be exciting here. When we move this straight up, it means we're taking right where the decimal is and we're moving it straight up. So it says now move the decimal that you just moved in the dividend straight up. Move the decimal that you just moved in the dividend straight up into the quotient. That is going to be important. Sometimes you're going to use that decimal that you move up and sometimes not, but it's just important to get used to get into the habit of that, okay? All right. In this situation, we want to, at this point, step number 5 is going to be rewrite the problem and do normal division. I want to also pay really close attention. Oh, I'm so sorry that you couldn't see that until now. So step number 5 says, rewrite the problem and do normal division. What I want to write after this is going to be really important. You might need to use 0 the hero in the dividend to move the decimal, right? That's going to be, I guess, partly here. Move the decimal that you just moved in the dividend straight up into the quotient. It's kind of part of step number 3, actually, too. Actually, it is more of step number 3. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open up a cloud here by step number 3. Just like that. And I want to kind of attach in this cloud that use 0 the hero in the dividend if necessary. We'll just kind of color them in like this. Actually, maybe we won't call them 0 the hero. Let's just do these zeros. Use zeros in the dividend when necessary to move the decimal. Okay, Use zeros in the dividend when necessary to move the decimal. And that's not anything new. Sorry, it just attaches better there. And then on step 5, you also might use zeros to drop down in the dividend. So when we rewrite the problem and we do normal division, we're going to put a little star here. You might need to drop down zeros next to, but we'll say drop down zeros in the dividend next to the remainder to keep going. You might need to drop down zeros in the dividend next to the remainder to keep going. I'm going to close that. That is all of the 5 steps. So they seem pretty basic until we get doing one, and then it might seem like a lot. So I really want to make sure that in this situation on step number 5, we understand how to do it. Okay? So let's work through all 5 of these steps on the next page. Go ahead and turn your journal page so that we can practice some. All right, the first problem we're going to do is this. 4.2 divided by 0.07. Looks like this. 4.2 divided by 0.07. All right. Well, we've got decimals everywhere. So if I were to follow step number 1 says, locate the decimal in the divisor first. So we look at it in the divisor, then we're going to get rid of it, and whatever we do to the divisor, we have to do to the dividend. Okay, so we see it in our divisor, and we move it to get rid of it. We're going to move it twice. Let's use our blue-violet for that. Really show those loops. I moved it 2 times, which is like multiplying by 10 to the second. So I have to multiply the dividend by 10 to the second. So if I move this one 2 times, then I also have to move the decimal that's in 4.2 2 times. Okay. So this is where I was talking to you, because I can only move it once before it becomes a problem. If I move it once, I need to use zeros in the dividend when necessary to move the decimal. So I have a situation where it's necessary to put a 0 there. So put a 0 after the 2 with the blue-violet. So I have to have a 0 here, so that I can move it one more time. So what did my divisor change to? When I multiplied it by 10 to the second power, or 100, that's what 10 to the second is, that number, 0.07, changed to, this is me rewriting, changed to just 7 and no pieces. The dividend changed to, not 42, I had to move it one more time. So what did it change to? 420. So now I'm doing normal division. I'm on step number 4. Or no, this is step number 5. Let me double check. Yeah, move the decimal straight up into the quotient. Whoops, sorry. So the decimal is after the 0 here. I'm supposed to move it straight up into the quotient. So if it was after the 0, I'm supposed to move it straight up into the quotient. 7 goes into 42 6 times. So I subtract 42. I bring down the next number. 7 goes into 0. No, 0 times. And I know it's just going to be 0. So the answer here is 60 point nothing, or just 60. Sorry, I forgot about that decimal into the moving up into the quotient. See how I just kind of made it part of my circle if it wasn't really necessary? That's a good thing to do. I would actually I would show the decimal right here at the end, like show in both places. And then I would actually show an arrow here that's going to explain what we're about to say. In this case, the decimal at the end is not necessary. But just do it. That's like the Nike phrase. But just do it. If we will just do it, I put a little Nike symbol. If you will just do it, put that decimal in there, even though it was here at the end here, do the little Nike check. In this case, it was not necessary, but just do it because it's going to come in handy eventually, okay? Do you want to look at one where it was handy? I think we should. Let's look at 4.692, so we have a new problem happening, is the dividend. And I would like to divide it by 0.05. Okay, first step, get rid of this decimal in the divisor. So I pick up my blue violet. I moved it 2 times, which means I'm going to move this one 2 times. So it's right now here in between the 9 and 2. In between the 9 and 2. So when I rewrite it, I move that decimal straight up. So the new divisor is 5. The new dividend is 469.2. And I move it straight up. It's going to be important that it's there. You can then either erase the decimal that's here or leave it and just know you've taken care of it. It doesn't matter. Okay, will 5 go into 4? No. Will 5 go into 46? Yes, 9 times. That would be 45, so minus 45 from 46. It's 1, and bring down the 9 and start all over. How many times will 5 go into 19? Almost 4 times, but it's just 3, and that's 15. So you minus that from the 19, and you get 4, and you bring down the next number, and you start over. How many times will 5 go into 42? It will go 8 times. And that would be 40. So is my answer 93.8 remainder 2? No. You don't have remainders when you have a decimal in the quotient. So this is step number 5 that says, right here where we wrote the star, you might need to drop down zeros in the dividend next to the remainder to keep going. Okay, so turn the page back and let's take a look at that. We're going to have to drop down some zeros here because I can't leave a 2 just hanging out there. So let's use our purple and let's drop down a 0. Okay, so I'm starting over. Now I'm asking myself, how many times will 5 go into 20? And it's 4 times. And that gives me exactly 20. And I write here, proof. Remember that day we did this? Proof. Circle your final answer. 93.84 is my final answer. It's pretty cool. Okay, let's try another one. 2.064 divided by 0.24. Couple different skills here, right? We're now looking at our double-digit division skills with the divisor. So let's first get rid of decimals and then be picking our benchmark number to round to, okay? So let's get rid of decimals. To get rid of it in the divisor, we move it. In this case, I moved it 2 times, or I times it by 10 to the second. I'm just going to write a 2 now. So I need to move it 2 times here. Ooh, that means it's in between the 6 and the 4. So I rewrite the problem. That new divisor is 24, because I moved the decimal. And the new dividend is 206.4. So I write that inside. And I move the decimal straight up. Bing, bing, bing. There it is. Move the decimal straight up. And now I start the division. And this is where I would go, okay, 24 is close to 25. And I can count by quarters or use my money knowledge. So, how many times, or will 24 go into 2? No. Will it go into 20? No. So I'm looking at it into 206. So I think about quarters because that's close to 24, and I count by 25s. Put your fingers up when we count. You ready? First one, 25, 50. You should have 2 fingers up. 75, 100. You should have 4. 125, 150, 175. You should have 7. 200. You should have 8. I think 200 and 206 are pretty close. I don't think we can go one more. So I'm going to do 24 times 8. Just over here to the left. Did you get the same answer I got? 192. So it is 8 times. I subtract 192. So once I did 6 minus 2 is 4, I just went, well, what's 20 minus 19? And it's 1. If you wanted to borrow and do all that, you could. And bring down the 4. So I start all over. 24 into 144. Well, it's got to be less than 8. What would 7 be? What's 7 times 25? 7 quarters. If I had 7 quarters, I'd have $1 or 100 and 75 cents. So it'd be 175. That's too high. What if I had 6? I'd have $1.50. That's a little too high, but it's really close to 144. I think it might be 6. Let's try 24 times 6 to the left. See what you get. Did you get exactly 144 like I did? Then 6 is the right answer in the quotient line. And you know how to do the rest. We got it to be all the way to 0. That's good proof. So my final answer is 8.6. What that means, I know this is so much fun. It means 8.6, let's go back to your original, times 0.24 is 2.064. Because I'm taking a piece, 0.24, of 8. That's why it's 2 point something. Pretty interesting. Really, really interesting, I think. Okay. In the next video, you are going to need to have your homework and remembering out to practice some problems with me. So I'll see you in the next video with your homework and remembering 5.8.